Space was quiet. Too quiet. That's what Dale always thought during the late watch. The stars didn't blink, the void didn't breathe, and the ship hummed like a sleeping animal. The Azure Glide floated near the edge of known space, far beyond the trade lanes and colony routes. Its job wasn't fighting or mining, it was listening. Listening for voices that shouldn't be there. Dale Peterson wasn't a hero. He was 28, thin-shouldered, and still got nervous talking to officers, but he had ears for patterns. While others skimmed data logs for routine noise, Dale dug deeper. He believed silence sometimes screamed, if you knew how to hear it. And tonight, the silence broke. A signal came through. Weak at first, then clearer. Not alien, not machine-made, not random static. It was a loop, a repeating distress call encoded in an old Earth naval cipher, one that hadn't been used since before the Void Exodus over 200 years ago. Everyone on the bridge assumed it was a ghost transmission, a trick of deep space echoes, but Dale checked the origin. Zen 447. That name made blood run cold. Zen 447 wasn't just another planet. It was a Class 15 Deathworld, the worst kind. Its air ate through titanium. Its gravity crushed bones. Its wildlife evolved to hunt anything with a heartbeat within minutes. No species in recorded history had ever set foot there and lived past 6 hours. Most didn't last 6 minutes. Even the Zenthar, a silicon-based race that breathed molten rock, listed Zen 447 as do not approach under any circumstance. So why was a human distress call coming from its surface? Dale's fingers trembled as he flagged the alert. He walked to the command deck, heart thudding like a drum. Captain Lynn Ortiz stood by the main viewport, arms crossed, eyes sharp. She was in her late 40s, with short, silver-streaked hair and a voice that could cut steel. When Dale handed her the datapad, she didn't speak for a full minute. Her eyes scanned the signal frequency, the encryption layer, the coordinates. "This is impossible," she said finally. "Yes, ma'am, but it's real." The Federation wiped all Class 15 records after the Kessler incident. No ship is cleared to go near Zen 447, not even for observation. I know, but this signal, it's not broadcasting into the void. It's aimed, like it's waiting for someone. Lynn turned to the tactical officer. "Run a deep scan, full spectrum. I want to know what's down there." The ship's sensors powered up with a low groan. Minutes passed. Then the display lit up. There, under the planet's toxic cloud cover, lay the broken outline of a human vessel, Federation-class destroyer, model outdated by centuries. Its hull was half buried in acid dunes, yet parts of it still emitted heat, and worse, still transmitted data. But that wasn't all. Orbiting the planet, perfectly still, were 12 massive ships. Not Federation, not known to any database. They were sleek, organic in shape like carved obsidian with glowing seams running along their surfaces. No weapons visible, no movement, just watching. "Who are they?" someone whispered. "Pilgrims," Dale said before he could stop himself. Lynn turned. "What?" "I've read the fringe theories. Some cultures believe certain death worlds aren't dead. They're sleeping guardians. Others come to pay respect, not to colonize, just to witness." "That's myth," the tactical officer snapped. "Maybe," Lynn said slowly, "but myths don't send encrypted human signals." She turned to comms. "Patch me through to Sector Command." The reply came fast. "Abort scan. Withdraw to safe distance. Do not engage. That signal is likely a trap or malfunction. Zen 447 is off limits. Repeat, do not approach." Lynn stared at the message. Then she looked at the image of the wrecked destroyer. Something about it tugged at her. Maybe it was the way the ship's name, barely visible through corrosion, resembled one from her grandfather's war stories. Maybe it was the fact that the signal wasn't begging for rescue, it was inviting. "Dale," she said quietly, "pull up all records on the USS Marlin." He blinked. "The Marlin? That ship vanished during the Void Exodus, presumed destroyed near the Orion Veil. Check its last known vector." Minutes later, the truth hit like ice water. The Marlin's last transmission placed it on a course that would have taken it dangerously close to Zen 447. Federation logs claimed it was lost to a black hole, but what if it wasn't? What if it landed? "They're down there," Dale whispered. "Who?" Lynn asked. "Our people." Silence filled the bridge.
Outside, the alien ships remained motionless, not threatening, not retreating, just waiting. Lynn made her choice. We're going closer. Passive sensors only. No emissions. I want eyes on that wreck. The Azure Glide dropped from high orbit into a silent glide path, skimming the upper atmosphere. Below, the planet roared. Acid storms, gravity quakes, sky split by violet lightning. Yet in the center of the chaos, the wreck sat undisturbed, and from it the signal kept playing, clear, calm, human. As they passed overhead, a new detail appeared. Scrawled across the destroyer's hull, in paint that shouldn't have survived a day on Zen 447, were words, "We are not lost." Dale felt his breath catch. This wasn't a distress call, it was a message, a declaration, and someone, or something, had kept it alive for 2 centuries. Lynn turned to her crew. "We're not leaving, not until we know what happened down there." Officers exchanged glances. Protocol said run, instinct said stay, but something deeper, older than both, pulled them toward that wrecked ship on a world that should have killed everyone on it. Lightning flashed. The alien ships shifted, just slightly, adjusting their formation as if acknowledging the Azure Glide's presence. No hostility, only attention. Far below, in the acid winds and crushing dark, something waited. Not death, not ruin, something worse. Something like hope. And in the quiet of space, hope was the most dangerous signal of all.
The order came in hushed tones. No announcement over the ship-wide comm, no formal briefing, just a quiet nod from Captain Lynn Ortiz in the dim light of the command deck. Dale and Nora Ellis were to go down, just the 2 of them, into Zen 447. Nora was the comm specialist, sharp-eyed and steady-handed. She didn't flinch when Lynn told her the mission. She just checked her gear, double-checked her oxygen seals, and gave Dale a look that said, "We're doing this." He nodded back, though his stomach twisted like a knot. They suited up in the new exo armor, matte black, lightweight, designed for extreme environments. It could handle 3.2 G gravity, corrosive air, and short bursts of plasma heat. It wasn't built for Zen 447, but it was the best they had. The drop pod was smaller than a cargo crate, barely room for 2 people in their packs. As the bay doors opened, the void outside swallowed sound. Then they fell. The descent was brutal. Wind screamed against the pod's hull. Acid rain hissed as it ate at the heat shield. Lights flickered, alarms blared and died. For a terrifying minute, Dale thought they'd burn up before they even touched ground. But the pod held. It slammed into the surface with a bone-jarring crunch, half buried in black dunes that shimmered like wet glass. Silence. Then the hatch hissed open. The air outside was thick, yellow-green, and carried a smell like burning metal and rotting fruit. Dale's visor fogged instantly, then cleared as the suit's filters kicked in. Gravity pressed down like a giant hand. Every step felt like lifting lead weights. Nora radioed in, voice tight but calm. "We're on the surface, beginning approach." Ahead, through the swirling fog, rose the skeleton of the old destroyer, the USS Marlin. Its hull was cracked and stained, but not destroyed. Parts of it still gleamed under the storm-lit sky, as if freshly polished. Vines, no, not vines, something more like living wires crawled over its surface, pulsing with a faint blue glow. They moved slowly, weapons holstered but ready, not because they expected enemies, but because everything here felt alive. The ground shifted underfoot. Rocks clicked together like teeth. Once, something large and 6-legged scuttled behind a ridge, its armored shell reflecting lightning. It didn't attack, it just watched. As they neared the ship, Dale noticed something impossible. The main hatch was open. Not broken, open, like someone had unlocked it from the inside. "That can't be," Nora whispered. They stepped inside. The interior was clean, too clean. Lights flickered on as they passed, as if the ship recognized them. Corridors were dry, no rust, no decay. The air inside tasted sterile, almost sweet. They found the mess hall, and there, on a metal tray, sat 2 rations, still steaming slightly, wrappers unopened. The expiration date read 224 years ago. Dale's breath fogged his visor again, but this time from fear, not heat.
They checked the logs. The ship's system was dead, but a backup terminal in the captain's quarters still held data. The last entry was dated the day the Marlin vanished. It showed routine checks, calm voices, no distress. Then nothing, except for one final line, typed in plain text, no encryption. They welcomed us. We are home now. Nora stared at the screen. Who's they? Before Dale could answer, the ground shook. Not an earthquake, a pulse, like a heartbeat. The ship's lights dimmed, then glowed brighter. Outside, the wind stopped, the acid rain ceased. An unnatural calm fell over the land. Then they heard it. Voices. Not over comms, not from speakers, from outside. Human voices, speaking English, calm, clear. Dale and Nora ducked behind a bulkhead, peering through a broken viewport. In the clearing before the wreck, figures emerged from the fog. Humans, dressed in simple, woven robes that shimmered like beetle shells. Their skin had a soft golden sheen. Their eyes glowed faintly like embers. They moved without suits, without masks, breathing the toxic air like it was mountain breeze. One of them raised a hand, not in threat, but in greeting. Nora gripped Dale's arm. Don't move. The figures didn't approach the ship. They stood in a circle around a shallow pool of liquid that glowed silver. They chanted softly, words too low to understand. Then, as one, they turned their heads toward the Marlin and toward the two hidden observers inside. They knew they were there. Dale's heart pounded. These weren't ghosts. They weren't clones or robots. They were human. Changed, yes, but still human. And they lived here, on Zen 447, not surviving, thriving. A low hum filled the air, not from the planet, from the sky. Dale looked up. Through the broken roof of the ship, he saw one of the alien dreadnoughts descending, slow, silent. It stopped 100 meters above the clearing, hovering like a giant eye. A hatch opened on its underside, not with weapons, with light, warm white light. More figures stepped out, not human, tall, slender figures with smooth gray skin and 3 fingers. They floated down gently, landing beside the golden-eyed humans. No fear, no tension, only respect. The two groups bowed to each other. Dale realized then the alien fleet wasn't here to conquer. They were here to witness, to learn, maybe even to beg. Nora whispered, "They're not prisoners, they're guides." Outside, one of the golden-eyed humans turned fully toward the wreck, not at the ship, at Dale, as if seeing through the metal and his visor. The human smiled, not a scary smile, a kind one, sad but peaceful. Then the alien ship sealed its hatch. The hum faded. The wind returned. The acid rain began again. The figures retreated into the fog, vanishing like mist. Dale and Nora stayed hidden for hours, until their oxygen warnings beeped, until their legs ached from crouching, until they were sure no one was coming back. They returned to the pod in silence. As it launched back toward orbit, Dale looked down one last time. The Marlin stood alone again, but now he saw it differently. Not a grave, a doorway. Back aboard the Azure Glide, Lynn waited. She took one look at their faces and knew. "They're still down there," she said. Dale nodded, "and they're not alone." He didn't tell her everything, not yet, but inside a single thought repeated like a prayer. Humanity didn't die on Zen 447. It changed. And maybe, just maybe, it became something better.
The next morning, Dale couldn't sleep. His mind replayed every second on the surface, the glowing eyes, the calm voices, the way the alien ship opened like a flower, offering light instead of death. He sat in the mess hall, hands wrapped around a cold cup of synth coffee, staring at nothing. Nora walked in, her steps slow, eyes tired but alert. "You saw it too," he said. Not a question. She nodded, sitting across from him. They weren't scared. They weren't hiding. They were at peace. Word spread fast. Crew members whispered in corridors. Some called it a miracle. Others said it was a trap, some clever bio-illusion cooked up by the planet's ecosystem to lure more victims. But Captain Lynn believed. She called a private meeting with Dale and Nora in her quarters. "I want to go down,"
she said. Not in armor, not with weapons. Just talk. Nora shook her head. They didn't speak to us. They just looked. Maybe they don't want contact. Or maybe they're waiting for the right person, Lynn said. After hours of debate, they agreed on a plan. One more drop. This time, a neutral zone, a flat stone clearing half a kilometer from the wreck. No weapons, no recording devices, just one human volunteer to walk out alone and wait. Dale volunteered. At dawn, or what passed for dawn under Zen 447's eternal storm, he stepped out of the pod again. This time, he wore only a light environmental undersuit, no helmet. The air burned his eyes and throat, but the suit filtered just enough to keep him alive for an hour. He walked to the center of the clearing and stood. The wind howled. The ground trembled faintly, like a sleeping beast breathing. Then, from the trees of black crystal and living moss, they came. 3 figures emerged, 2 men, 1 woman, all dressed in soft, earth-colored robes woven from fibers that shimmered like wet silk. Their skin glowed faintly gold, and their eyes held the deep calm of people who had seen centuries pass. They stopped 10 meters away. One of the men stepped forward. He looked maybe 30, with short, dark hair and a face lined not by age, but by quiet wisdom. He spoke in clear, simple English. "You returned." Dale swallowed. "Yes. Most do not." "Who are you?" Dale asked. "We are the anchored, those the world chose to keep." He explained. When the USS Marlin crash-landed over 200 years ago, the crew was dying. Acid burns, broken bones, poisoned lungs. They expected death. Instead, the planet reached for them, not with claws or teeth, but with roots, with light, with songs in the wind. The native intelligence of Zen 447 wasn't a monster. It was a guardian, a living mind made of every plant, every creature, every drop of rain. It healed them, not by fixing their bodies, but by rewriting them. Slowly, over generations, the crew and their children became part of the world. They learned to breathe the air, to drink the rivers, to speak with the storms. They didn't conquer Zen 447, they joined it. "We are still human," the woman said softly. "We remember Earth, holidays, songs, mothers' voices. We teach our children, but we also remember this place gave us life when the universe would have let us die." Dale asked about the alien ships. The woman smiled. "They come from far away, some from dying worlds, some fleeing war. They hear the stories, the Deathworld that adopts, not kills. They come hoping the world will choose them too, but it only chooses those who come without fear, without greed." "Why show yourselves to us?" Dale asked. "Because your ship listens," the second man said. "Most ships run when they hear our signal. Yours came closer." Back aboard the Azure Glide, Dale reported everything. Lynn listened without interrupting. When she finished, she asked, "Can they help others? Other humans?" "They say the world is willing, but it's not a machine. It's a choice. You have to want to stay, to change, to become part of it." That's when the real trouble started. Federation Command had been monitoring their comms. While Dale was on the surface, they'd intercepted his report. Within hours, an emergency order came through. Full quarantine. Label Zen 447 a biohazard level Omega. Classify the anchored as a rogue genetic cult. Prepare for sterilization protocol. Orbital lance in 48 hours. "They think we've been infected," Nora said, reading the message with shaking hands. "They think the anchored are a plague." Lynn slammed her fist on the console. "We're not reporting a threat. We're reporting a second chance." But Command didn't care. To them, anything that changed human biology was dangerous, unnatural. The anchored weren't survivors. They were abominations. Tension spread through the ship. Loyalist officers began securing weapons. Engineering teams locked down the lance array. Dale and Nora were ordered to stay in their quarters. But Nora had a plan. While everyone watched the captain, she copied the full data packet from the surface, audio, visuals, biological readings, and sent it out on an open civilian band, unencrypted, unfiltered, to every news outlet, every academic hub, every colony network in range. Within hours, the story exploded. Footage of golden-eyed humans healing an alien child, recordings of the planet's harmonic frequencies, sounds that lowered heart rates and reduced fear, logs from the Marlin showing peaceful logs until the very end. People began asking, if Zen 447 can save the lost, why destroy it? On the bridge, a young officer turned to Lynn. My sister's colony was hit by the Helix plague last year. They lost thousands. If there's even a chance this world can heal people, shouldn't we try? Lynn looked out the viewport. Below, the alien fleet had formed a ring around the planet, not to attack, to protect. She knew then what she had to do. She locked the weapon systems with her command code. No one could fire the lance without her. We're not leaving, she told her crew, and we're not killing hope. Outside, in the acid rain, the anchored watched the stars. They knew war was coming, but they also knew something the Federation had forgotten. Sometimes the strongest weapon isn't a laser or a bomb. It's a story. And theirs was just beginning.
Chaos spread through the Azure glide like fire through dry grass. Captain Lynn Ortiz had locked the orbital lance controls, but that only made things worse. Officers loyal to Federation command saw her actions as treason. Whispers turned to arguments, arguments turned to threats. By the second day, half the crew refused to follow orders. The other half stood guard at weapon stations, waiting for someone to make a move. In the middle of it all, Dale and Mora stayed quiet. They didn't argue, they just watched. They knew the real battle wasn't on the ship, it was in people's minds. Fear against hope, control against trust. Then Nora got a message, not from command, from the surface. It came through her private comms channel, a soft voice with a golden echo. The world is tired. It gave all it had to save the first ones. Now it needs new voices to carry its song, but only if they come freely. Dale understood. The planetary consciousness, the living mind of Zen 447 was fading. It had spent centuries healing, teaching, protecting, but it couldn't do it alone forever. It needed more symbionts, more humans willing to stay, to become part of it, to keep its spirit alive. The anchored couldn't do it themselves. They were few. They needed help. But who would volunteer to leave everything behind, to change so deeply they might never be human again in the old way? Back on the bridge, tension reached its peak. Lieutenant Cruz, head of security, stepped forward with 3 armed officers. "Captain," he said, voice flat, "unlock the lance. That's a direct order from high command." Lynn didn't turn. She kept her eyes on the planet below. "And if I don't? Then I take command under Emergency Protocol 7. You'll have to shoot me first," she said quietly. For a long moment, no one moved. Then Cruz lowered his weapon slightly. "I don't want to hurt you, Captain, but that thing down there, it's not natural. It changes people. What if it spreads? What if it turns whole colonies into whatever they are now?" "They're still people," Lynn said. "They laugh, they cry, they remember their mothers. They just live in a place that loves them back." Outside the ship, the alien armada held its position, unmoving, unafraid. One of the dreadnoughts pulsed with a deep blue light, slow, steady, like a heartbeat. Then, without warning, the main view screen flickered. A live feed appeared, not from the Azure glide, from Earth. It was a public broadcast. A news anchor stood in front of a crowd holding signs, "Let them live. Zen 447 is not our enemy. Save the anchored." Behind him, scientists argued with Federation officials. A woman with tears in her eyes held up a photo of her son lost to radiation sickness. "If that world can heal, why are we destroying it?" The broadcast cut to footage Nora had leaked, real, raw, undeniable. The anchored helping a wounded alien child breathe again. A young man walking barefoot through acid rain, unharmed, smiling. The Marlin's final log, "We are home now." Even the crew on the bridge watched in silence. Cruz lowered his weapon all the way. "They're not monsters," he muttered. Lynn turned. "No,
They're what we could be if we stopped being afraid. At that moment, a new signal came in, encoded, urgent, from Federation Central. Dale read it aloud, voice shaking. Orbital strike delayed. Public pressure too high. New orders. Hold position. Await diplomatic envoy. Relief washed over the bridge, but Lynn knew it wouldn't last. The Federation didn't give up. They just waited. Down on the surface, Kyle, one of the younger anchored, stood at the edge of the clearing. He looked up at the Azure glide and spoke to the wind. "We don't want war. We just want to be seen." Dale heard those words in his mind, clear as if Kyle stood beside him. He turned to Lynn. "They're asking for someone to trust them enough to come down and stay." "Someone like you?" she asked. He didn't answer, but they both knew. That night, Dale didn't sleep. He walked the corridors, looking at photos of Earth, blue oceans, green fields, cities under starlight. He thought of his parents long gone, of friends scattered across colonies. He had nothing tying him to the old life. Maybe that's why the planet called to him. In the morning, he went to Lynn. "I want to go back, not to observe, to ask if I can stay." She studied him. "You understand what that means. You won't come back as you are." "I know, but maybe I'll come back as something better." She nodded slowly. "Then go, and tell them humanity hasn't forgotten how to hope." As Dale suited up, Nora handed him a small data chip in case he needed to remind them who we were. He smiled. "I'll remind them who we can be." The drop pod launched again. This time it carried only one person and no armor. Just a simple suit, an open heart, and a choice. Below, the anchored waited, not as strangers, as family. And high above, the alien fleet glowed, not in warning, but in welcome.
The drop pod landed softly this time. No crash, no smoke, no alarms. Just a gentle sigh as the hatch opened to the ever-present wind of Zen 447. Dale stepped out alone. No helmet, no weapons. Just a thin environmental suit and the data chip Nora had given him tucked in his pocket. The air burned his skin, but he didn't flinch. He walked toward the clearing where the anchored waited. They stood in a loose circle, silent, watching. The same three from before, 2 men, 1 woman, plus others, maybe 20 in all. Their robes shimmered in the dim light, and their golden eyes held no judgment, only patience. Behind them, the alien fleet hovered like silent stars, their ships glowing faintly in rhythm with the planet's pulse. Kyle, the younger anchored, stepped forward. He looked no older than Dale, but his eyes carried centuries of calm. "You came back," he said. "I did. Not to take, not to study. I came to stay." A murmur ran through the group, not of surprise, but of sorrow. "It's not easy," Kyle said. "The change hurts. Your body will rewrite itself. Your mind will learn new songs. You may forget parts of who you were." "I'm okay with that," said Dale. "I don't want to forget Earth, but maybe I can carry it in a new way." Kyle nodded. Then he turned and walked toward the center of the clearing, where the ground shimmered like liquid metal. The others followed, forming a ring. Dale walked with them. In the center, the earth opened, not with fire or violence, but with light. A soft golden glow rose from cracks in the stone, warm and humming. This was the heart of the world, the living consciousness that had saved the Marlin crew so long ago. It was dying, not from age, but from giving too much. It needed new voices to carry its memory, new bodies to keep its song alive. "Do you wish to stay?" Kyle asked, not with words, but with feeling. The question filled Dale's mind like a whisper carried on the wind. He looked up at the sky. Far above, the azure glide hung like a silver tear. He thought of Lynn, of Nora, of all the people watching from orbit, from Earth, from distant colonies. He thought of the woman who lost her son, the scientists who dared to hope, the officer who lowered his gun. He thought of humanity, not just its wars and fears, but its quiet courage, its endless search for home. "Yes," he said, "I wish to stay." The moment he spoke, the light rose higher.
It wrapped around his feet, then his legs, cool and alive. It didn't burn. It listened. The planet tasted his memories, his first sunrise, his mother's laugh, the fear in the pod during descent, the hope in Lynn's eyes. It didn't take anything. It only asked, "Are you willing to give?" Dale closed his eyes and let go. The change began slowly. His skin warmed. His breath came easier even in the acid air. His heartbeat matched the planet's rhythm. Around him the anchors sang, soft, wordless notes that echoed through the ground and sky. The alien ships pulsed brighter. High above, the clouds parted just enough to let a single beam of sunlight through. On the Azura glide, every screen lit up with biological readings. Dale's vitals shifted, not failing, but transforming. His cells multiplied with new patterns. His brainwave activity synchronized with Zen 447's harmonic frequency. Nora whispered, "He's not dying. He's becoming." Lynn stood at the viewport, tears in her eyes. She opened a channel, not to command, but to every public feed she could reach. "This is Captain Lynn Ortiz of the Azura Glide," she said, voice strong and clear. "What you're seeing isn't an invasion. It's a choice. One man chose to stay, not because he was forced, but because he believed in something better." She broadcast everything. Dale standing in the light, the anchored singing, the alien fleet glowing in unity, the planet healing itself through him. Back on Earth, people watched in silence. Then they began to cheer, not out of fear, but wonder. For the first time in generations, humanity wasn't running from the unknown. It was walking into it, arms open. Hours passed. When Dale opened his eyes again, the world looked different. Colors were sharper, sounds had layers. He could feel the roots beneath his feet, the wind in the trees, the heartbeat of the ships above. He looked at his hands. They still looked human, but when he held them up, they glowed faintly gold. Kyle placed a hand on his shoulder. "Welcome home." Above, the Federation envoy arrived, a small diplomatic vessel, flying no weapons. They had seen the broadcast. They had seen the choice. They didn't come to destroy. They came to talk. Lynn met them in orbit. Zen 447 isn't a threat. It's a gift. One we don't deserve, but one we can learn from. The envoy asked, "Will others come?" "Only those who are ready. Only those who come without fear." In the weeks that followed, more ships arrived. Not warships, but civilian vessels. Families with sick children. Scientists with open minds. Soldiers tired of fighting. They came to the edge of the planet, and some, like Dale, stepped out without armor. Not all were chosen. The planet only accepted those who truly wished to stay. But even those who returned home carried something new, a belief that survival didn't have to mean domination, that life could welcome, not just conquer. Dale never left Zen 447 again, but he never forgot where he came from. Sometimes on quiet nights, he stood on the highest ridge and sent a message into the stars, not in words, but in feeling. A simple thought, carried on the planet's song, "You are not alone." And far across the galaxy, in 1,000 homes, people heard it, not with their ears, with their hearts. Humanity hadn't been lost on a death world. It had been found.